And
You know
that's
what's
why he said
cool in talking about the Super Bowl? Someone who's won 2 of them. That's pretty sweet. No offense, Luke. You haven't won any Super Bowls.
I think we're talking about me. Okay.
Don't want to talk Super Bowl with you right now. I'd rather do it with the guy who's
I
been
don't
there,
wanna
done
talk about
that.
the Eagles and the Chiefs with anybody right now. Daniel Jeremiah put out a mock draft 1.0, which implies there could be up to 1 million of
There's
these.
probably going to be 17.
There's going to be over under 17 mock drafts from Daniel Jeremiah.
Justin Blackman.
And man, 1048. You got me. I was wondering, like, is Kellan going to just totally forget that happened earlier this week?
Shout out to the 37 people listening right now who were listening on Friday who get that. Not going to explain the inside joke to you. If you were there, you were there.
At least it was on the air, but people were probably turning off the radio quickly as we kept going deeper with it. Daniel Jeremiah has the Cardinals taking Jalen Walker out of Georgia at pick 16, which is possible because they pick ahead of Philadelphia, who takes everybody from Georgia. So they could do that. But there's also this, I don't even know what you would call it. It's not like a report or anything, but you got Mack Wilson Sr.
He's
recruiting Maxx Crosby from the Raiders. Maxx Crosby, I think it's been pretty clear over the last few months, would be willing to leave the Raiders. I don't know how much, and it's always weird to say stuff like this, but I don't know how much he really helps the Raiders right now. He's amazing, but he's been amazing, and they're still not winning any games by virtue of what else they have on the team and the position he plays. I mean, if there was any way the Cardinals could pull off a move that's big, that's the kind of big move I'd want.
Well, I think the main thing with Crosby is just like his age, right? Because like you look at a lot of the guys that are moved at this position in their career where their franchise is moving in a different direction, and it's clearly the star player that really doesn't belong in the situation that they're in. But I think that's the main difference. He's in his late 20s and is exactly what I think that the Cardinals need, because some of the things that we found ourselves talking about whenever I was filling in or when I was on the show with Mitch on Arizona Sports Tonight, something I talked about a lot is, as solid as the Cardinals defense has been and as surprisingly good it has been at times, there's just not a lot of like game changers and difference makers on that team. Like you've got Buddha. You were hoping Darius Robinson could get there at some point, but it just wasn't really fair to him with how much he was out of the game. So you were looking for anyone else who could sort of develop there. Like we had great conversations about B.J. Ojulari going into the year. Like we believe that he could maybe be someone who graduates there. Like Maxx Crosby is worth 2 game changers. He's a phenomenal football player. So I think the stars aligning here, one, the most direct need on the team, in my opinion, which is edge. 2, his age status. And then the third one is ultimately the most important one, which is how much do the Cardinals want him? Because they're going to have to pay a lot to get him. This is not just one of those star acquisitions where you give up a 3rd-round pick and that's it. Like you're going to have to give up a lot more.
Yeah, well, that's obviously a huge holdup, and there would be other teams that would want Maxx Crosby for everything you just said. I mean, you see what he's done in his career, and you think like, oh, he's probably like 32, 33, and he's 27. He'll be 28 when the season starts, but he'll have just turned 28, and he is exactly what the Cardinals need. And you look at what that could potentially do for the defense. All those guys you just talked about, B.J. Ojulari, Darius Robinson, those are real. Those guys might end up being, they could be outstanding players. They got to stay on the field, and they then have to develop into NFL players. They're still so young and inexperienced at the NFL level. And I go back to what we saw last year at the receiver position. It's like you go in and you're excited about Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson even, but then you realize these guys have no experience at the NFL level, so there's going to be a wall that they hit or a ceiling they hit up against. If you could somehow, and I know it's a long shot, but if you could somehow bring in Maxx Crosby, to me it unlocks a lot of these young players on your defense. And the other thing it does is you could just spend the whole draft taking offensive linemen. At that point, you really don't need to worry about defense in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm over-exaggerating a little bit, but not that much.
The other key here is Maxx Crosby is tweeting respectfully, no respect, like respect with this in mind. He's tweeting like a college sophomore 3 days after they got broken up with by tweeting, "They will wish they treated you better when times were tough. The fake always expose themselves," which always alludes to some sort of dysfunction or lack of content with how his current situation is unfolding.
Oh, it is the Raiders.
Which feeds into it. It's not difficult for them to sort of do that. They do that rather naturally. But when you look at the draft, I think Jalen Walker at 16 is a great pipe dream, Mr. Jeremiah. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. I'm the one here talking to Daniel Jeremiah about how the NFL draft works, apparently.
Let's
but
get him on the line.
I just don't think so. This is the dream is not going to happen for me in getting one of these 3 edge rushers. Abdul Carter might be the first guy off the board. That's what he has going. He was one of the guys who are not following the NFL draft for me at all. Again, like the expert here telling the expert how it goes. But watching those Penn State playoff games, I was like, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Who's that? He just sticks out immediately whenever you watch him.
One of those players doesn't even need a number, and like if nobody was wearing a number, you'd be able to identify Abdul Carter on the field.
Just your classic, like that guy's going to play a lot on Sundays, going up, that kind of guy. And then Michael Williams is the other edge rusher out of Georgia as well. He's expected to go higher than Walker, but those are sort of the three premium guys that are ranked within the top 15 that should go there. Atlanta is a key team to keep an eye on because while I've been going through these mock drafts over the last 2 weeks, they've been the team where an emphasis on needing an edge has been significant with them, and they pick right before the Cardinals, which is, again, why I just don't believe either three of those guys are going to be there. But, man, if you don't have to worry about that and you acquire someone like Crosby, like you said, like there's plenty of offensive line talent scattered around this part of the draft. I think the interior, mostly at guard, is where, man, getting a first-round pick there, putting him next to Paris Johnson on the left and having that set for the next 5 years, that'd be pretty sweet to me.
Yeah. You know, there's a couple things. I know fans look at it and like, well, you have all this cap space and they'll never use it, and they don't use it this year and they didn't use it that year. And it's like, I get it to a certain extent, right? But if I'm going to use that cap space, you're also giving away your flexibility. So I'm not doing that for somebody that was good or that I think could be good, you know, somebody who's like, or maybe it was like a flash in the pan for a year in the right situation. Oh, they must be amazing now. Like if I'm going to, that's an asset that the Cardinals have right now, is that ability, that cap space and that flexibility to make some moves. But Maxx Crosby, to me, would check all the boxes of like, yeah, it's worth it. It's worth spending a bunch of money. It's worth giving up some assets for him, especially if those assets are quote, just picks. I'm not giving up a first rounder, obviously, because I shouldn't have to. But at a certain point, who am I getting with this, let's say, second-round pick? Is he going to be Maxx Crosby? No, probably not.
An important context here is that I think the Cardinals could have played poorly enough on defense last year. We're like, are they really like a Maxx Crosby? They're a Maxx Crosby away from being a really good defense.
Maxx Crosby and a Nick Rallis defense. Who's not signing up for that?
Sign a corner in free agency, and you're off to the races from there.
Then your secondary is loaded. If you sign a good corner, you already have those young corners. You feel real good about your defensive front. If you throw Maxx Crosby in there, then all of a sudden everybody else just is better.
They were that good with Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones hardly playing, which is where they focused like their entire like off-season additions in terms of who they were adding to the defense. You forget that all the time.
We got to get this. Can we call Monty and just be like, hey, we got an idea for you? Mac Wilson's probably already calling Monty.
Now you're being the idiot telling the very intelligent football man how to do it. We both accomplished the goal of the guy with the microphone. There we go.
Same segment. Although I think Monty would probably agree with I'll take Maxx Crosby. Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Your take a lot less outlandish than mine.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.